It's kind of far out, but if you were hoping to see Florida Governor Ron DeSantis on the ballot for the next presidential election in 2024, you might be in for a disappointment. Our Miami correspondent Leonardo Feldman has more live from Miami. Leo.
Sean, that's right. Governor Ron DeSantis brushed off any and all rumors regarding a possible 2024 run during a press conference in St. Cloud, Florida. Let's listen to what he had to say.
This has nothing to do with all the speculation about me is purely manufactured. I just do my job. We work hard. Obviously, our state, has led on a lot of things, including on this now. Other states are copying us. But that's what it's really all about, just helping folks here. And I hear all this stuff, and honestly, it's nonsense. So, I don't really know what to say to rumors. Yes, sir.
And his overall approval ratings have been dropping recently, but it is important to note that his Republican approval ratings are actually extremely high, and we do know that he's extremely popular with Republicans. Over 83% approve of his job. And this decision to call nonsense a possible 2024 run, it comes as former President Donald Trump might be running in 2024. That's what the speculation and the rumors, and even some elected officials are saying that they think that Donald Trump will run. And it is important to note that in April of this year, former President Donald Trump said that he is considering Governor Ron DeSantis as a possible running mate. Back to you.
Always the top of the conversation. Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis there when it comes to 2024. Leonardo Feldman staying on top of it from Miami. Leo, thank you. We'll bring our panelists in to weigh in now. Today we have Republican strategist Melanie Burkholder. She's joining us live along with the author of Talk Politics Without Arguing, Dino Scaros. Good to see everyone here. Thanks so much for joining.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning to you. Let's chat about this. Governor DeSantis said speculation about a run for the Oval Office is, quote, just nonsense, but the polling might point to why that is. While a recent Morning Consult political intelligence poll shows that the governor gets an 83% approval rating among Florida Republicans there on your screen, as you just saw. The same poll shows a 48% approval rating among all Florida voters, a 6% drop from the previous poll. A possibility, Melanie, is he just hedging his bets? If the poll looked different, would he be saying something different?
Well, I actually had the opportunity to meet Governor DeSantis a month or two ago when he was here in San Diego County, and he gave a speech relative to what they're doing in Florida regarding the COVID response. And his remarks were relative to Florida. They didn't have anything to do with a national platform of running for president or even vice president. So I think we take this man at his word and we go, 2024 is a long time from now. And if he decides to run as a vice president or as a running mate with President Trump, then we'll see how that plays out. But I do know his leadership style is much appreciated in Florida, and I think people in Florida would like to retain him there.
Dino Scaros, your thoughts on it in the recent polling and his comments of calling it just nonsense?
Well, I think, Sean, the just nonsense part was a lot of the other speculation that Trump doesn't like him, and there's a lot of that talk going on. But the bigger picture is America, the time is ripe in America for a new Ronald Reagan to emerge. In 1980, the country had enough of Jimmy Carter's inept leadership in both domestic and foreign affairs. Not only did Americans elect Ronald Reagan, they did so in a massive landslide, reelected him by an even bigger landslide, ushered in Republican control of Congress for the first time in 40 years, and the Republicans won 3 presidential elections in a row. It was a major transformation in American politics. And now we should actually be grateful that Joe Biden is so inept, because the time is ripe for another Reagan now. That's what it would take. Enough is enough. Time to bring in another Reagan. The question is, Donald Trump has too many Americans, unfortunately, with incurable Trump derangement syndrome. So I think he can win, but not necessarily in a landslide. As for DeSantis, it's still a wild card whether his tremendous leadership in Florida will translate to sustained national appeal.
Well, maybe commander-in-chief isn't the right fit. In fact, our own Logan Raddick was at a Trump rally back in June. He did ask some folks if they thought Trump should run again in 2024, and some people had some strong thoughts about who his running mate should be. Here's that.
DeSantis would not be a bad man to run with either.
The running mate, maybe DeSantis.
DeSantis would be a good vice president pick. You know, I would like to see Ron DeSantis run with Trump. That would be an excellent choice.
If we had a fallback to go on, it would definitely be Ron or Candace.
You know, Melody, it's interesting to hear, again, that obviously these are folks at a Trump rally. You know what kind of response they're going to give. But talking about DeSantis, what are they seeing in DeSantis that they love so much to possibly be a running mate on the presidential ticket in 2024?
Well, Sean, I think it might just be the pushback over the national rhetoric of the COVID response and how he handled Florida wildly differently than most of the states like California, where I live, where the governor put in massive mandates and, masking issues and closing schools and basically locked down the economy. And people suffered at that. And in Florida, they thrived. So I think we saw a big difference in the COVID response, and that is true leadership. When you see something, you make a decision, and it might not be the decision that is the right one, but at least you've made a decision that is, what you're representing of people in Florida, and that's what he did. So I think it was interesting in that clip, too, to say, well, Ron DeSantis would be great, or Candace. And everybody knows they're talking about Candace Owens there. And I think it's interesting that Republicans are considering that when that's not something that she's really been talking about. But it's a great paradoxical equation that we have here, and we'll see how it plays out for 2024. But I do think Ron DeSantis would be a fantastic leader in whatever capacity he decides moving forward.
Final thoughts from Dino Scaros on the topic.
I think a Trump-DeSantis ticket is a very strong ticket, but it's basically doubling down on Trump. That ticket would be very effective if Joe Biden continues to be so inept. It's kind of like if your business is burglarized and you get a dog, you want to get a big German Shepherd because you want protection. You don't want warm and fuzzy. And so if the country continues to be on this downward trend, Trump-DeSantis would be a dynamite ticket.
All right, leave it right there. Yeah. Melody Burkholder, Dino Scaros, thank you so much. Always great to see you here on this Wednesday.
Thanks, Sean.
You got it.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.